Okay, looks like we're live. Okay. So, wow. Holy shit. That was... Oh my gosh, my phone is... I forgot to mute my phone. I hope you guys really like my ringtone there, but... Forgot to... mute my phone. Hope you guys really like the ringtone anyways, but holy shit. Atlanta, I don't know what I just saw and still trying to process. It's been like what, 24 hours, a little more than 24 hours, but I've just been sitting here trying to process what just happened, and I just rewatching my my previous video about, just lambasting this track to the ground after the abomination that was the truck and Xfinity races. Holy shit, my opinion of this track has changed. I just had to jump in and make a stream because I just cannot let the last video on my channel be me just slandering Atlanta Motor Speedway or Atlanta Super Speedway, whatever you want to call it. The last video cannot be on this channel, cannot be me just slandering this track, so I just had to jump in and make a video because I gotta clear this track's name. I just my opinion of this track changed after watching the Cup race. Although to be fair, what I said on Saturday, it pretty much applies, but you guys will see what I mean. So anyways, we actually had a race on Sunday for the first time in 2024. If you count the Clash, was run on Saturday. The Daytona 500 was run on Monday. This is the first race of the season that was run on its scheduled Sunday time. It was a pretty sunny day, bit cloudy, but the race went on as scheduled, so no weather concerns out there. Just like in the Xfinity race, the front row was a repeat of last week. Only this time, Michael McDowell was the one sitting on the pole. So that was a pleasant surprise leading up to this weekend's race. It was McDowell's first career pole in 467 starts. It surpasses JD McDuffie's record of most Cup starts before scoring his first career pole. So shout out to him. And once again, for the second week in a row, Front Row Motorsports on that front row, once again flexing that Penske alliance with McDowell, Joey Logano, and even Todd Gilliland qualifying first, second, and fourth. And they put all 5 Fords combined in the top 10 too, because Blaney qualified 6th and Cindric qualified 8th. So of course, while one Ford team is on the rise, another one is in shambles. Stewart-Haas Racing, they might have just dug themselves a hole early in the season with an issue during inspection regarding the roof rail deflectors on the 10 and 41 cars of Noah Gragson and Ryan Preece. NASCAR confiscated them so that they could inspect them, take them to the R&D center. Some big penalties could follow because this has been a precedent most of the time when NASCAR confiscates a part. Some massive penalties will follow. We're talking about at the very least that's like a 60 points fine at the very least. But anyways, aside from the Fords just being fast and qualifying again, Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson, they qualified 3rd and 5th respectively. 2 of the best Chevrolets overall on last week's 500. Not necessarily where they finished, but and judging by their performance, they were 2 of the stronger Chevrolets. Chris Buescher started 7th, just representing for RFK, and then for Stewart-Haas Racing, Chase Briscoe 9th, and then Austin Dillon, the other RCR guy, qualifies 10th. Then we have William Byron in 11th, going down the running order, just the qualifying starting lineup here. Martin Truex in 12th. Once again, Toyotas, they don't put any cars of theirs in the top 10. The fastest Toyota in qualifying, Truex, he will be starting 12th. And then Hamlin right behind him in 13th. Josh Berry in 14th, Noah Gragson in 15th. For some Stewart-Haas guys. Then Harrison Burton in 16th, who he had a pretty good race. Pretty he impressed me quite a bit, especially since his car was loose for parts of that race. Alex Bowman qualified 17th, Bubba Wallace in 18th, and then Ryan Preece in 20th. So all Stewart-Haas racing cars, they qualified top 20. Ross Chastain 21st, then Keselowski in 24th, deeper in the field. Chase Elliott 28th, and he will also be starting in the rear because of an unapproved adjustment. I believe it was an engine sensor that they changed in qualifying. Then Josh Williams in 30th, making his first Cup start for Kaulig Racing, part-time obviously. And then Cas Grala 33rd, making his first start of the season for Rick Ware Racing. He ran the Daytona 500 last week, but it was with Front Row Motorsports. And then John Hunter Nemechek in 34th, and Eric Jones 37th. Eric Jones got loose on his qualifying lap. That's why he qualified dead last in 37th. Otherwise, it would have been BJ McLeod starting dead last in dead last, but he instead qualifies 36th. Only 37 cars showed up. Speaking of Eric Jones, like I said, got loose on his qualifying lap. But Legacy Motor Club, they were very slow in qualifying, even for Toyota standards. Again, just a byproduct of no practice on super speedways. Like I said during the video that I did discussing Saturday's action, the only practice this Cup Series teams did, it was only to practice the pit road at Atlanta, and it's a good thing they did because that pit road was very tricky. We had a green flag pit sequence that was pretty wild. During pre-race inspection, however, we got a huge bombshell. Aside from, Chase Elliott starting from the back, the huge bombshell was actually Joey Logano starting from the back and serving a pass-through penalty because of a gloves infraction. Again, this is another little-known rule in NASCAR, in the rule book, that, NASCAR, it's in the rule book, but NASCAR doesn't enforce it. That NASCAR very rarely enforces. Point is, you know how it is in NASCAR. If you're cheating, you're not winning. Just get away with it. Break a rule that's not in the rule book, or just hope that you don't get caught, breaking the rules with a violation. Logano unfortunately got caught using an illegal glove, or like a modified glove. He loses his starting position, and he serves a pass-through penalty due to the gloves infraction, which is pretty costly considering that you enter the Atlanta pit road in entering turn 3. So he will be he's sure to go a lap down. Like I said, Atlanta pit road is the trickiest pit road to manage, especially under green. Unfortunate for Logano for sure. This means, however, that Kyle Busch, he moves up a row, and he will be starting second alongside Michael McDowell. So anyways, you think that Logano will be starting with a huge handicap to start off the race, and you will be right. But as Logano came down to serve his penalty, and Kyle Busch was, taking the lead from McDowell, 8 and 34, just fighting for the lead up there. He got a great push from Larson on the inside to lead the first lap, but McDowell, he tried to retake the lead from the inside. He is unable to. And instead of getting freight trained, because the outside is a place to be, Todd Gilliland instead, he lays back to leave a hole for his teammate to slot in. Todd Gilliland just being a good teammate. It turns out to be a big mistake, however, as this caused a huge stack up behind him that led to a 16-car pileup. The biggest wreck recorded in Atlanta Motor Speedway history, when the biggest amount of cars involved in a wreck in Atlanta Motor Speedway history. Most of the guys involved were among those who qualified towards the back too. It all started with, everyone checking up, the accordion effect, Austin Dillon getting turned by Martin Truex, which sparked the melee. And just like that, half the field already with damage early on. Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, John Hunter, Eric Jones, Josh Williams, Harrison Burton, Gragson, Bubba Wallace, Daniel Hemrick, Alex Bowman, Ty Gibbs, Ryan Preece, Carson Hocevar, BJ McLeod, Daniel Suarez, and Chase Elliott among those involved. Again, no major carnage. Most of these guys, they made it past the DVP with no major issues. The only guys that were taken out of that wreck, I believe, were only Josh Williams, Christopher Bell, Noah Gragson. He beat the DVP, but then he eventually went to the garage and also DNF'd. Like I said, Logano was the big beneficiary in all of this. He stays on the lead lap as he was serving his penalty. He already come down pit road. He got already come down pit road. He was already committed on pit road before the caution came out. So he served his penalty, and then on the restart, he, with all of those cars damaged, he basically lined up in the top 20. So crisis averted, I guess. Anyways, on the restart. Anyways, after that little, hiccup that, scared a lot of people, especially considering the how bad the trucks and Xfinity races were. I believe a lot of people's alarms sounded out there, considering that, they didn't have really high hopes for the Cup race, and that lap 2 incident, it was like, yeah, if this is how the rest of the race is gonna go. Fortunately, the rest of the race played out better than the lap 2 incident. So Busch and Larson on the restart, they trade the lead for a while, taking turns, doing slide jobs on each other on the inside lane, which is something that I actually noticed all race long, that the outside lane, it was not as dominant as it was in the truck and the Xfinity race. Like, it was still the preferred lane, sure, but more guys could make the inside lane work. I noticed on a couple of restarts, even Michael McDowell, most notably, when he was the leader will always, for a couple of restarts, they would prefer to restart on the inside lane. More guys could make the inside lane work, and not just, the best guys. Like, basically anyone could make the inside lane work with the right, with the right momentum. And the right push at the right time, you could clear for the lead. And not only, even when you clear the outside lane for the lead, everyone on the outside lane, you will still stay inside, because that was where the most of the energy was. And going outside will actually be going to the top lane will actually be detrimental to you. Because of that, the inside lane actually did not dissolve as easily or as quickly as the outside lane did in the Saturday's races. So we didn't see as much single file racing too. The only thing we saw is when the field was, starting to line up for like green flag pit stops towards the end of stage 2 or halfway through stage 2. But other than that, I was pleasantly surprised with the amount of action there was. I believe this race also beat the record that was set in March of 22 for the most lead changes at this track, which is of course expected with the new configuration, but still, damn. Anyways, we got a couple of quickie yellows, and again, after that 16 car pileup, we got like a 15 to 20 lap green flag run before another quickie yellow for a Chris Buescher spin, getting loose off of turn 4 and going for a spin when he was running 9th. We saw some takers on pit road on this caution. Only Larson, Kyle Busch, Blaney, McDowell, most of the leaders stayed out, as well as Hamlin, Briscoe, Chastain, Truex, Ty Gibbs, Bubba Berry, Zane, Smith. There were several penalties, and this is a race where there were a lot of penalties, and most of that wasn't because of the pit road entrance has something to do with that probably, but I mean, under yellow, you're always pacing at 45 miles an hour entering the pit road. So, but even then, Atlanta, like I said, with the new pit road entering turn 3, Atlanta pit road is the trickiest one to manage. I don't think the pit road is like goofy. I don't think, a lot of people were criticizing the pit road and stuff like that. That, ironically enough, that wasn't one of the problems that I had with this new Atlanta. It was like, yeah, the pit road is going to be difficult to manage, but with some practice, with more practice, I feel like this could be more avoidable. The issues that we saw on pit road, the near misses, incidents that we saw, because there were a couple of guys that they got that got into some issues that we'll get into later, but if these guys had more practice, other than 1 minute being able to practice like pit road speeds, I feel like they will get it nailed down. That's not to say pit road that we're still not gonna have the incidents, because for a super speedway style track, pit road Atlanta is just too narrow still. So anyways, we got a couple of penalties here. The first set of penalties, Chris Buescher got a commitment line violation. John Hunter and Daniel Hemric got too many men over the wall, and Gragson and Alex Bowman, they enter a closed pit because they were pitting too soon. I believe this is like entering a closed pit, I believe. I guess they pitted a lap too early, or they pitted with the wrong group. They pitted with the lead lap cars when they weren't supposed to. But yeah, anyways, we go to the restart. Kyle Busch, he retook the lead from Ryan Blaney on the inside, and like I said, he stayed on the inside lane because that's where the energy was. He doesn't go up, which again, it was something to take note of moving forward. Is that, again, like I said, if the energy is on the inside lane, the drivers are just gonna stay inside. They're not gonna move outside. Again, something I really liked, unlike what happened in the Xfinity and Truckers, where everyone just ran single file on the outside lane. He eventually lost the lead to McDowell, but again, he held up pretty well on the inside lane. And speaking of McDowell, like I said, his pass for the lead, it also came on the inside lane. So again, something that I saw in the Cup race was the outside lane. I feel it still was a superior lane overall during the weekend. I mean, and even the Cup race, if you looking at the Cup race by itself, the outside lane I feel was a slightly better lane. I mean, the pass for the win was made on the outside lane, by the way, so that just goes to show you. But yeah, even if I think that the outside lane was the better lane, it wasn't like as superior as it was in the Cup race as it was in the Xfinity or Truck race. Like, I feel both lanes were evenly matched, with the slight advantage to the outside lane, but you could make the inside lane work for the entire race basically. And even when the field settled into single file, it was only for a couple of laps, because then as soon as as the laps went on and the stage was coming to a close, drivers were gonna will start to make moves, and they will start to create the inside lane again. So even when the field settled into single file, the only time we saw like some extended action, we saw like any single file extended action for like a couple of laps, it was during when the field was lining up for like some green flag pit stops, and even then there were still a couple of them were running like too wide for a couple of rows back. But Truex, Larson, Busch, the moment McDowell took the lead and the field started like going single file, the action was starting to die down. Boom, Truex, Larson, and Busch, they move down, they create momentum yet again on the inside. Hamlin also tries to get into that inside lane, but unfortunately, his spotter tells him that he was clear when he wasn't, and he basically just clears himself of Kyle Busch. I mean, you can even hear the 8-car lift on his onboard. I know people tried. I know the broadcast, they try to say Busch came off, Hamlin came down. No, Hamlin came down on Kyle. You could even hear the 8-car lift. Hamlin just spun himself off. Anyways, we get some takers on pit road. The front runners, obviously, they stay out for stage points. The other guys further in the back, they pit. John Hunter, Austin, Dillon, Reddick, Gragson. Just again, with this close to the stage end, the guys were in the back were like, yeah, let's get ready for stage 2. Let the other guys, compete for stage points. The restart was just a one-lap shootout to end the stage, and with a great push from Chastain on the inside to hold off Ryan Blaney, McDowell wins. On the bottom lane, mind you. He won the stage by staying on the bottom lane and getting the push from the bottom lane. So, again, something that I've said numerous times. The bottom lane was very much workable. Blaney finished this stage second, Chastain in third, and then Larson, Busch in the top 5, while Truex, Stenhouse, Byron, Bubba Wallace, and Todd Gilliland in 10th. Joe Logano finished 12th. he didn't get stage points, but he worked his way up towards the front after a very eventful stage 1. So he was in pretty prime position. He had already put himself in prime position to get stage points in stage 2 and compete for the win at the time, of course. So then we go to pit road. The drivers who did not pit in the previous caution, they do so now. Basically, the rest of the field, basically the leaders, the stage point, the guys that stayed out for stage points in the previous caution, and the rest of the field stay out. Because of this, nothing changes much, however, on the restart. I mean, stage 2 begins with a front row motorsports car and a Penske car still running 1-2. Only difference is it's not McDowell and Blaney, it's Todd Gilliland and Joey Logano. And then we go to stage 2. Gilliland and Logano, they stay 1-2 for several laps despite challenges from other guys. The most notable one was Zane Smith, who got a huge run on the outside, a huge push from Josh Berry. He went up to third, I believe, and I believe he could have, gone all the way to the lead if Logano just didn't go up to block the run. And when he blocked the run, the 71 got like arrow tied. It upset the balance on that car. He hit the wall. He got a flat tire. He pitted. Then he fell multiple laps down. He came back. It turns out he had a broken toe link, which is why he couldn't get up to speed. And then he had to go to the garage and he DNF'd, which is such a shame because just in the blink of an eye, just like that, poof, it was over. So I really felt because when I saw Zane Smith like going there with a push from Josh Berry, I was like, whoa, go Zane, go. Watching Zane Smith, Josh Berry up there with Todd Gilliland up front, like battling Joey Logano. That was pretty exciting too, and it was another element of this race. Like we saw a lot of comers and goers on this race, especially with all of the wrecks that happened. There weren't that many DNFs at this point in the race yet. Like most of the DNFs came later in the race. But at this point, like stage 2, this wasn't like Zane Smith was what, the fourth driver to DNF. I mean, considering the amount of drivers, considering that half the field had been involved in some sort of incident and had some sort of damage, the fact that only 3 or 4 guys had DNF'd at that point was kind of impressive to me. Another thing that was pretty impressive was Michael McDowell climbing from 17th to 3rd in just 15 laps. And on the inside lane too. He made most of his moves on the inside. He definitely looked like the guy to beat so far, like in the first half of the race. And then in the second half of the race, the guy to beat was like his teammate Todd Gilliland. As a matter of fact, I just want to give a shout out to Todd Gilliland because that 38 car, through the first 2 races of the season, he led the most laps at Atlanta, definitely. So shout out to him. This was definitely his breakout race. Regardless of where he finished, this was a breakout race, not only for Todd Gilliland, but also for Front Row Motorsports as a whole, because they led the most laps combined as an organization. As far as drivers go, Todd Gilliland led the most laps. And throughout the first 2 races, and this is honestly pretty crazy, Todd Gilliland has led the most laps on if you add up both the Daytona 500 and Atlanta, the laps led for all drivers. Todd Gilliland is the driver that has led the most laps among the first 2 races, which is just incredible. So anyways, there were a couple of incidents as well. Harrison Burton, like I said earlier when I was talking about him during qualifying, he had a moment. He just had a loose race car. I feel like he drifted up in this particular instance. He almost stacked up the entire field in turn 1. He caused Blaney and Austin Cindric to lose a bunch of spots. And he also broke the top 7 train that Ford was leading, because at that point before Harrison Burton got loose, Ford was just running away with this race. They had McDowell and Todd Gilliland running up front. They had the 3 Penske cars, Harrison Burton, like basically the entire Penske alliance was there. The 3 Penske cars, front row, and Harrison Burton. And then you also had Chris Buescher up there running in, all of them running the top 7. and then Harrison Burton getting loose, and poof, that stranglehold. Ford still led. They had like, top 3, top 4 spots, but they didn't have the stranglehold that they once had. So it was a really close call, considering we already had an accident on lap 2 due to a stack up. But yeah, nothing really happened. Him, Blaney, and Cindric lost a couple of spots though. While all this was happening, Logano, he took the lead from Todd Gilliland just as the field went too wide all throughout. So this is where the action really picked up, or at least it looked like it would pick up for a bit. But like I said, as green flag pit stops, this was around the time that green flag pit stops were about to happen. So it eventually devolved into single file up front. Logano, Blaney, Chastain, top 3. It did stay too wide, like I said. It stayed 2 wide, even 3 wide in the mid pack, but again in the up front, as the field started getting ready for like green flag pit stops, it was getting more organized up front, more single filed. But they weren't pacing around like they were doing on Saturday. Let me tell you, people were actually making moves. If there wasn't anything happening up front, at least it was something happening in the mid pack. So yeah, eventually green flag pit stops happen. We finally see the new Atlanta pit road in action on all of its chaotic glory under green. The first takers, Logano, Blaney, Todd Gilliland, Cindric a few laps later. Larson assumes the lead, and then little by little the rest of the guys, they just follow suit. Something I also noticed, because Atlanta pit road is still an unknown quantity, because this is the first like green flag pit sequence with this new pit stop. I feel like a lot of those guys were like, it was like 2 guys pit, then a couple of laps go by, then another guy drops down, then 2 more guys drop down, and then 3 guys, and then a bigger pack, and then the last few takers. This is exactly what just happened here. It was more smaller packs happening instead of just the bigger packs that happened at the Daytona 500. So yeah, little by little, the rest of the guys, they just follow suit. The next couple of laps, we see guys like Keselowski, Chastain, Buescher, Hamlin, Truex, Elliott, Josh Berry. In the case of Hamlin and Ross Chastain, they see an opportunity to try and outbreak the other guys to gain a huge number of spots. Hamlin does it to perfection because he is a super speedway ace. So this is something that you usually do at Daytona, outbreak the other guys. Chastain, unfortunately, he time set a little too late, and by the time he crosses the commitment line, because under green flag conditions, the pit road speed entering turn 3, you have to slow down to 90 miles an hour, and then when you enter the actual pit road, you slow down even further to 45 miles an hour, which is the usual pit road. So yeah, Chastain, unfortunately, he gets penalized for speeding, and Josh Berry also got penalized for speeding as well. And then the very next lap, we get a crash. While coming down pit road, Michael McDowell, he gets loose, he locks the rear tires up, he spins, and collects William Byron, and they both hit the inside wall. For a moment, I thought they both had like serious damage, but then again, I remember it's the Gen 7 car. These cars are more like durable, for better or for worse. What really shocked me is that there was no caution, and green flag pit stops, they proceeded as usual. And I still, looking back on it, I still cannot believe the caution didn't come out, and it wasn't because NASCAR. And it wasn't. What really pissed me off was the reason the NASCAR said why they didn't throw the caution, because that was a caution. They acknowledged it as such. NASCAR, Bob Pockrass, I believe he even tweeted out that yes, NASCAR said they considered throwing the caution, but then they did not because they didn't want to throw it because it will mess up the pit strategy. Because if you guys don't know, something that you guys might have realized by now. Because Atlanta pit road, because of Atlanta pit road starting in turn 3, and the fact that you have to slow 90 miles an hour and then down to 45 and then make your pit stop, you could very easily lose a lap and a half to 2 laps down by the time you come back to pit road. Um, so because of that, yes, I understand the concept of, like, if you throw a caution during green flag pit stops, then that is going to mess up the entire the entire sequence, because you could see guys trap a lap down. You could see guys even trap 2 laps down, that even if they take the wave around, they're still going to be a lap down. They're all going to be battling for free pass position, and it's going to be just absolute chaos. But I mean, a caution is a caution. If an accident is happening behind you where drivers just hit the wall, just spun out, and they crash into the safer barriers, it doesn't matter that they can still refire it and keep going. Just throw the caution. I was definitely surprised, and again, this just goes back to just me, NASCAR. I've always praised NASCAR for, like, being proactive when both the Daytona 500 and the Clash situation, they did it with, the weather. I know this is completely unrelated, but when it comes to safety, NASCAR is just so flip-floppy. They are proactive one week, and then they just fall asleep on the chair. Like, for once, the one time there needs to be a caution, NASCAR just didn't throw it. Go figure. But anyways, so anyways, after that little hiccup on pit road, that fortunately both McDowell and Byron, yeah, they came back from it all right. They were still able to run all the way to the finish, actually, and they were able to run. They came back 2 laps down because they lost a lot of time, obviously, because it happened entering pit road. So of course their pit sequence was longer, because they also had to examine damage. They were 2 laps down, but they were able to continue without much issues. So anyways, green flag pit stops, they will continue on as normal. Eventually Bubba and Stenhouse, they were the last guys to pit, and they both get penalized for speeding, as well as Kyle Busch and BJ McLeod. Again, like I said, Atlanta pit road on the green, tricky as hell. You know what will solve that? More practice. I know the Cup guys, they had practice, but it was only like 1 minute, 1 lap, 1 minute of practice, the new pit road, 1 lap. That's just not enough practice. I'm sorry, guys. There needs to be, like, I'm talking like an actual practice session. Like, I don't know why NASCAR or the teams, they are so allergic to not practicing on super speedways. I really don't understand why. The pros of cost cutting, the pros of having practice outweighs the cons of more costly, more backup, more money being potentially wasted on a backup car if a crash during practice happens. Bro, who cares? I'm pretty sure that all of this, like pit road speeding penalties, half of these issues on pit road, they would have been avoided if there was a practice. I'm not saying that there would have been 0 speeding penalties, because there's always going to be a couple of them every race, but Michael McDowell locking the rear tires up and spinning, getting loose entering pit road, and collecting Byron, I'm pretty sure that crash doesn't happen if we don't have practice during pit road. So I understand the concerns of people saying that the pit road was a bad idea, but honestly, for all the criticisms that I had about this new Atlanta, the pit road wasn't really one of them. I was more intrigued by anything rather than anything. Now that I think about it, because at the same time, you guys got to realize that originally pit road off turn 4 on a mini Daytona, it's very tricky. Like Atlanta, the normal way they entered pit road at Atlanta back in 2022 when they did the green flag pit stops, it was pretty damn dicey. Things were getting a bit dicey. You have to admit. So this new Atlanta pit road wasn't the worst thing to happen. I wasn't completely against it. That's all I'm trying to say. So after all of these pit stops, which most of these were, by the way, fuel only, Team Penske, they cycle back 1, 2, 3 with Austin Cindric leading Blaney and Logano. Cindric leading, of course, because he took less fuel than his teammates, which allowed him to gain track position and eventually cycle back as the leader. The field is very spread out at first, but towards the end of the stage, Cindric, he starts saving fuel, which allows the rest of the field to bunch up again. And because his teammates don't want to pass him, because they don't feel any need to, because no one is making a move, they let Cindric just lead laps, stay out there and lead laps. Eventually, once the pack, they just bunch up, and the Penske 1, 2, 3 is broken. Logano starts making his moving. Logano makes his moving 1 and 2, with 4 to go in the stage to retake the lead. But Cindric comes right back in 3 and 4 with a slight job of his own. Logano tries to come back on the last lap, but then he gets tied in turns 1 and 2, and he drifts up the racetrack, and he collects Chris Buescher and Hamlin in a crash that ends stage 2 under caution. At first, I thought that it was just a terrible block that Logano just pulled off, but then it turns out that he just got tied. Again, this weekend, like I said on Saturday, when talking about Saturday's races, this weekend in Atlanta was unusually windy, so you can definitely see that reflected in the track conditions. Cars getting tight on loose all of a sudden. Logano, he just got tight. I'm not gonna say that he pulled a bad block, and Logano has this reputation of throwing bad blocks, but for once, I don't think he threw a bad block. At first, I thought he did, but the more I think about it, the more I believe him that it's just that he got tight, because especially Buescher was trying to give him room too. Buescher had also hit the wall before Logano even got to him, so I do believe that Buescher he tried to brake to give Logano room, but he unfortunately got tight as well and hit the wall, and then Logano hit, and then Logano just drifted up into him and hit him as well, and then Hamlin hit him from behind. It was a 3-car crash only, but it still was enough to end the stage under caution, which Cindric won, Larson finished second, Blaney third, Suarez, Martin Truex, Todd Gilliland in 6th, Keselowski, and then Harrison Burton in 8th, and then the 2 chases, Briscoe and Elliott 9th and 10th, to end the stage. So on pit road, once again, everyone pits. Since the green flag pit stops were for fuel only, everyone was gonna pit for tires. Todd Gilliland wins the race of pit road with Keselowski in 2nd and Chase Elliott in 3rd. Larson has to pit again due to an issue with the left rear tire that they didn't secure it properly. And Michael McDowell gets penalized for pitting outside his box. So anyways, we go to stage 3 now, and this is where the action really picks up. We got Todd Gilliland and Brad Keselowski in the front row with Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin. Two damaged cars, especially Hamlin. And Hamlin just really amazes me. That car, he didn't get any stage points. That car was, got pretty much damaged. That was his second incident of the day. Just right there, up in 4th, right behind, right alongside another damaged car on Elliott. Despite this, however, Gilliland manages to clear ahead with the field running behind him too wide, until a caution comes out for Kyle Busch, forcing Kaz Grala, who was running 9th at the time, in a 3-wide situation. Grala gets loose and spins out. He almost cleared out Busch and also Suarez. It was a pretty dicey situation. 15 car goes for a spin. No one hits him. Kyle Busch might have sideswiped him a little bit too. And that was a very unlikely aggressive move for, veteran Kyle Busch. If it was like younger Kyle Busch, like I get it, but you never see like veteran Kyle Busch just get just make a move like this. People are gonna say that this was like veteran move, but even for a veteran to do that kind of move, that was pretty aggressive. And again, I was very perplexed as to why Kyle Busch did that, but the reasoning for that was just pretty simple. He was in the free pass position, so I don't blame him for being desperate. I'm not saying he did it on purpose. He didn't do it on purpose, but it's still funny nonetheless. And I know a lot of people will say, that because he caused the caution, because this is a rule, if the free pass car is involved in the caution, then he shouldn't get the free pass. But the thing is, Kyle Busch just doored cast Grella, and then Grella got loose and spun out on his own. So that maybe that's the reasoning that NASCAR said that, you know, Kyle Busch was directly involved in the caution, so he gets the free pass. If you hate Kyle Busch, I kind of see how you're pissed off on that. But hey, he was desperate, and his desperation move worked for once. He was back on the lead lap. So anyways, we got some takers on pit road at that point. Most of the leaders pitting for fuel. The only drivers that stayed out were Gilliland, Truex, Hamlin, Briscoe, Suarez, Keselowski, Burton, and Larson. Most of the lead lap cars, they pitted for fuel. John Hunter and Priest, they took 4 tires, and Ty Gibbs got penalized for running over too many boxes. So on the next restart, Gilliland, once again, he clears ahead of the pack thanks to a big push from Truex. And even when Truex got the better of him for one lap, the 38 just came right back the very next lap. Like, it was at this point. If it wasn't the 34, it was the 38. But it always looked to me like Front Row Motorsports, they were the team to beat for most of the race. And it stayed like this for the next couple of laps, like the 38 and the 19 trading slide jobs. Just amazing, amazing racing all around that we just didn't see from the Xfinity race or the truck race for some reason. I don't know. Larson made it stayed that way, Gilliland, Truex just battling for the lead, but eventually Larson made a daring slide job of his own on the 38 to take the lead in turns 1 and 2, and it was a very close call. If the 38 didn't back off, it would have been a big one for sure. And I thought that Todd Gilliland would not back off, considering that the first time he backed off, it was on lap 2, and that caused a big pileup. I'm surprised that Gilliland backed off in the first place. I'm also surprised that, he backed off, because if he didn't, Larson would have been like a Joey Logano situation, except that with Larson drifting up the track. But, and thankful, it kept it clean, and, Larson made an amazing move for the lead. So from that point forward, the field stayed side by side everywhere until a caution came out for an Elliott spin. Once again, desperation by a lap car causes a yellow, and this time it's Ross Chastain spinning the 9 after bumping him entering turn 3, which is, once again, a big no-no on a super speedway, or on any track for that matter. Bumping someone on a corner. Unlike Kyle Busch, however, Chastain did not get the free pass, not because he was directly involved in the caution. I mean, he wouldn't have gotten the free pass either, but the main reason he didn't get the free pass was because he wasn't even in that position to begin with, because Bubba Wallace, who was just barely ahead of Chastain on the outside of him, he was awarded the free pass instead. So, tough shit, Ross. So anyways, only McDowell stayed out, this time on pit road, while everyone else just pitted for a bit more fuel. And Truex won the race of pit road, which means that he will be able to restart alongside McDowell. Unfortunately, though, Truex wouldn't be able to retake the lead, even after the front row car that he's battling is not Todd Gilliland, it's his teammate. McDowell holds the lead after getting a push from Hamlin, and he clears ahead of both JGR cars for a moment. Speaking of moments, Austin Dillon had a moment of his own, hitting the wall of turn 2, which didn't end in a caution. I do believe he pitted, because I saw him pretty slow on the backstretch. I can't really recall if he pitted or not. I think he did. And this is where the move of the race, and I believe this is where the race just shifted. The tone of the race just shifted from good racing to just, great racing, daring racing, may I add. This was, I believe, if it wasn't for the finish of the race, this would have been the move of the race, because and this is one of the things that, a lot of people, when they're gonna look back on this race, they're gonna look back at the finish, which again we're gonna get to later. Trust me, I have a lot of things to say about the finish, but this move right here I feel like I really don't want this move to be forgotten because holy shit, I don't know how did it. I don't know how they made it, how they kept it clean, how they did not crash. Um, when McDowell and Truex clear ahead of the field to battle side by side, it allows the rest of the field to get a jump on them. Chase Briscoe goes to the outside to off them to make it 3 wide, and then on the front stretch, just as they are crossing the start-finish line, Austin Cindric, he makes it 4 wide on the inside and makes the pass for the lead without going below the double wide line, the out of bounds line, without going out of bounds. And I was just sitting there like, bro, he did not just do that. He did not just do that. Who is this? Who is this? And again, what surprised me the most though was that the field did not crash. They kept it clean. You look at that shot on the backstretch, running 4 wide, like McDowell, Truex, all of those guys, like running right there 4 wide behind Cindric. Look at the little room. You could stick a piece of paper. You couldn't even stick a piece of paper between those guys. It was just crazy, and they kept it clean for basically a lap and a half, 2 laps, and then they eventually went back to 3 wide, but still they kept it clean. It was crazy. I really thought this was where the second big one was gonna happen. That was just absolutely badass. That was just absolutely badass. That was just a crazy sequence, man. I love that. And that move, unfortunately, not only sent Truex to the back, and that move, not only did that move send Truex to the back because he was just sent to the sucker hole because running 4 wide, it also brought Kyle Busch and Todd Gilliland back to the front to do battle with Hamlin, Cindric, and Briscoe. Again, comers and goers, like I said, this race had it all. And the action continues to go on for a couple of laps until, again, another commercial yellow stops the action. Keselowski, another one of those guys that had come up, he had been slowly, steadily working his way through the field. Keselowski was running third at the time. He got loose in turns 3 and 4, the same spot that Chris Buescher spun out in stage 1. That was the same spot, crashed out. He collects Larson and LaJoie, and he collects Kyle Larson and Corey LaJoie, or a 3-car pileup. Just a 3-car accident, but still. This is the 5th Atlanta race at the new configuration, and this is the 5th time Kyle Larson has been involved in an incident. Like, he just cannot catch a break. You know, on super speedways he just cannot catch a break, but especially at this track, the new configuration of Atlanta, the guy just cannot catch a break. Every single race he has been racing there. Every single race, every single time the Cup Series goes to Atlanta, you can guarantee yourself that Larson is going to get involved in some type of incident. I don't know how. The guy's just a crash magnet at this track. Then we go to pit road. The leaders stay out. The only takers are McDowell, Elliott, Priest, Chastain, Stenhouse, Buescher, and John Hunter. So, you know, most of the guys that were like towards the back. So then we go towards the restart. Once again, Hamlin is the leader, and he clears with a push from Kyle Busch, push from the Busch. He gets clear to the lead as the field battles for third right behind them. Eventually, Kyle Busch gets the lead from the 11, and the race is on. Kyle Busch is unable to clear Hamlin, and the side draft slows the both of them down, which allows Blaney to make his move on the outside 3 wide to split the 11 because Kyle Busch made his move inside. Hamlin is caught in the soccer hole, and he drops out of the top 5, and this brings Cindric, Bubba, and Todd Gilliland into the mix as well, and also Chase Briscoe, of course. And unfortunately, this is where 4 wide once again goes wrong. Another caution happens, this time because of 4 wide racing just going wrong. Hamlin and Briscoe, just battling side by side. Kyle Busch is there. Bubba Wallace is there on the outside. Hamlin and Briscoe like on the 2 middle lanes. Suarez goes inside. He sees an opportunity to make the pass, but this forces a 4 wide situation entering the corner. And unfortunately, unlike the Cindric situation, we're not so lucky. The field is not as lucky this time, or I'll rather say Hamlin and Briscoe are not as lucky. No give, all take. Unfortunately, that's ugly for both of them. They get together and they crash. Haley also spins out to avoid the crash, but Hamlin has significant damage on the right front. He does finish the race, unlike Larson, who had that similar damage. Hamlin manages to finish the race, but he finishes like several laps down. Chase Briscoe just hits the wall hard, and that's a DNF for him. So the race is red flag for cleanup, and after 11 minutes it resumes. Again, the leaders stay out again. At this point, leaders, they have saved enough fuel to make it to the end. Fuel, I don't think is a concern like it was in the Xfinity race, thankfully. At this point, they're just racing towards the end. The only guys that make that pit are just, again, guys towards the back. Byron Hemrick, Todd Gilliland, Priest, John Hunter, Austin Dillon, Harrison Burton. So we go to the restart. And now the Penske cars, they are lined up 1-2 with Blaney and Cindric. But Suarez and Busch make a challenge for them on the outside. It looks to be a good race between the 4 of them. That looks to be the race to the finish between the Penske cars and the 2 Chevrolets. But then another caution, which is actually the final caution of the race. Austin Cindric and Bubba Wallace almost make contact. Cindric gets tight. And Bubba, he has to slow down. He checks up. The ensuing checkup causes Josh Berry to get loose and spin out. And Josh Berry at that point, I believe NASCAR on Fox, I remember to show the graphic of like guys that were not involved in incidents. I believe this was like with 50 to go in the race. Josh Berry was among those guys that wasn't involved in any wrecks, I believe. And unfortunately, he hadn't been involved in an accident until now. He collects Carson Hocevar, and Chase Elliott also goes for a spin trying to avoid them. He almost gets T-boned by John Hunter Nemechek. Thankfully, he doesn't. Also, important to note, Suarez was barely ahead of Blaney at the last scoring loop, so he scored as the leader. And this leads into what turns out to be the final restart of the race, with 5 laps to go. Suarez, he tries, after getting a great push from the 8 car, he tries to clear Blaney. Well, he clears Blaney for the lead, but then Blaney just forces his way on the outside. The energy that the outside lane had, led by Blaney, was just way too much. And, Suarez, he blocked as much as he could, but at the end, Blaney just forced his way through the outside. And he took the outside from Suarez, and then he holds, and then he drops inside, and then he drops outside, inside. What he does is like very similar to what Ross Chastain did at the Daytona 500, just trying to block every possible run that Suarez did. It didn't matter how much Suarez, I believe, with 3 to go, Suarez, he tried to go like away outside. I thought he was gonna hit the wall like Zane Smith did, considering what happened at the finish. It's thankful he did not, but anyways, Blaney had done such an amazing job, defending himself for the lead. Eventually, with 2 to go, the run from the inside comes, led by Kyle Busch, and Blaney has to drop down to hold that run, and he stays inside for the final lap. And then that is when Blaney goes inside. He stays inside to block the run from Kyle Busch in the backstretch. But then, entering turn 3 with the momentum that he had from, I believe it was Bubba Wallace or Chastain. It could have been Bubba, I don't know. But with the momentum that Kyle Busch had, entering turn 3, he goes up the middle because Suarez is already like on the outside with help from Cindric. Busch goes out the middle, and Suarez gets the run outside, and this is just poetry in motion. This is literally something that just I just could not believe my eyes. They went 3 wide in turns 3 and 4, and they stayed like that, door to door, all the way to the finish line. Just absolute insanity. You just had to be there. You just had to be there to watch it live. And that finish is all over the media. NASCAR, they even put it on Sports Center. Unfortunately, it was number 10 on Sports Center when the Ross Chastain Hail Melon was number 1. But I digress. It was just absolute insanity. A 3-wide photo finish. The race ended on a 3-wide photo finish between the 12, the 8, and the 99. The margin of victory, it was 3/1000ths of a second. Hell, the margin between the first and third place car was 7/1000ths of a second. This is the third closest finish in NASCAR history. And I was there to witness it. Like, we will never see something like this again. This is something that you only see in the movie. As a matter of fact, it happened in the first Cars movie. The Lightning McQueen sticking his tongue out, like at the start of the first Cars movie, when McQueen just blows a tire on the last lap and Chick Hicks and Street Weathers are coming over him, and McQueen just puts his tire, just puts his tongue out to be able to, at the very least, break even with them on a 3-way tie and force a 3-way tie. And watching the replay from the angle that they put it, I thought it was going to be Blaney at first, but upon further review, after they gave us the replay, after Fox, they gave us the replay. Upon further review, Suarez was declared the winner by a literal splitter. Like, for a moment I thought, Blaney was gonna, Blaney was gonna win, and I was thinking like, oh, Blaney won, another close finish that Blaney won, because the last time Blaney won a race at a super speedway was Talladega last year. He won it by a photo finish over Harvick. Like, I know Harvick was disqualified after post-race inspection, but Blaney still won that race by a photo finish. And now I was thinking, wow, at first I thought Blaney won the race, and I was like, yeah, Blaney once again, another photo finish that Blaney ends up winning. But no, again, upon further review, after NASCAR, they just showed the replay of the Fox, they showed the replay of the finish. Suarez, he crossed the line on the outside by a splitter. And, regardless of who won, because I like Ryan Blaney, and Kyle Busch and Suarez are my 2 favorite drivers. Kyle Busch is my favorite, Suarez is like my second favorite driver. Regardless of who won, it was a 3-wide finish. It was amazing. Like, regardless of who won, I wouldn't be mad at who it was. Once they declared Suarez the winner, because Kyle Busch was not gonna win it. Like, Kyle Busch was in the Lightning McQueen situation, except that the tongue, he didn't stick his tongue out, because his car doesn't have a tongue, obviously. But once Suarez was declared the winner, I literally exploded. I literally exploded. I was like, no way. When I was watching the replay, I was like, no way they're gonna give the win to Suarez. No way they're gonna give it to Suarez. No way they're gonna give it to Suarez. And once I heard from the race control, yeah, the 99 to victory lane. The 99 to victory lane, I was like, bro, there is no way. I literally exploded. I am just celebrating. My playoff bracket may be busted because, I had Suarez barely missing out on the playoffs, but that's because I didn't think he would win a race. I didn't think he would make it on points, and I didn't think he would win a race. But again, if someone had to bust my playoff bracket, I'm so glad it was Suarez, because he was like my 17th guy. I had, again, like, if you rewatch my playoff predictions video that I made, or like preseason predictions, I had Alex Bowman and Suarez like for the final spot. I had Bowman barely making it in, simply because I didn't think Suarez would score enough points or win a race. I'm so glad he did. I am so glad he did, especially with him being kind of, but not really on the hot seat. I know his contract year is 2025, but with all of the signings that Trackhouse made, a lot of people were calling his future into question, saying that his 2025 was going to be his final season with Trackhouse. But more on that later. For now, let me just get the notable finishers out of the way because I have a lot of things to say. This finish and this race as a whole just changed my entire opinion of Atlanta, of Atlanta, this new Atlanta configuration. I don't even want to call it Atlanta Super Speedway anymore. This is new Atlanta to me. This is new Atlanta to me. It's the same track with a modern twist. At this point, I just realized the truth that at this point I just convinced myself because this was a modern classic. This was a modern classic. Like we always look at, when you think of Atlanta finishes, it's like Dale Earnhardt, Bobby Labonte in 2000, Kevin Harvick versus Jeff Gordon in 2001, Carl Edwards, Jimmy Johnson 2005. Hell, even Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson in 2011. It wasn't a photo finish, but those final 10 laps of that 2011 Atlanta race, it was amazing. And yeah, Atlanta has had its fair share of moments under the old configuration, and I'm gonna miss the old configuration. But this new layout, this new configuration with super speedway racing, I don't hate it as much as I used to now. I don't hate it. I don't hate it as much as I used to. It's gonna take some getting used to, obviously, but my opinion after this race, my opinion has changed for the better. I owe this track an apology. I was not familiar with this game. I really thought that 2023 was gonna be the peak of what Atlanta. I thought that the racing that I saw like on 2023, the rain shortened race in July, I thought that race was gonna be the best I would see out of New Atlanta. But this track just shattered my expectations on a whole new other level. But anyways, let's just get the finishers out of the way. Suarez managed to get the win over Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch. Blaney second, Kyle Busch third. Again, Kyle Busch, he should have stuck out his tongue like Lightning McQueen. And now that I think about it, this is just funny because I was looking through Kyle Busch's Instagram, or rather, Kyle Busch's Instagram post saying like, yeah, I just need a couple of inches. And then on the comments, I was just scrolling through the comments. Samantha, I just had to make a double take. Samantha actually commented, yeah, that's what I've been telling you for the past 20 years. Samantha, you just murdered a man. You cannot do your husband like that. The guy just lost in a three-way photo finish. He just came out on the losing end of a three-way photo finish, and you're just gonna do him like that. I just don't know anymore. I was joking. If Kyle Busch doesn't show up to race next week at Las Vegas, it's because Samantha just murdered him by roasting him alive after that. Oh my gosh. Samantha Busch is just an absolute savage. But anyways, Kyle Busch is third, Blaney second. Again, they should have stuck out their tongues like Lightning McQueen and it would have been different. But anyways, Austin Cindric fourth. Nice rebound from the Daytona 500 last lap crash. Bubba Wallace in fifth. Back-to-back top fives to start the season. The only driver that has done it so far this season. Bubba Wallace, Ricky Stenhouse. One of the few clean cars, ironically, is Ricky Stenhouse. One of the few clean cars. I believe Cindric also was clean. Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney. I believe those were like the only four cars that were like clean. Like incident free. They brought back in one piece, not a scratch on them. At least not a visible scratch, but anyways. Ross Chastain finishes seventh. It was actually a very quiet race, unusually quiet race for him. I always expect a lot out of Ross Chastain on these Atlanta races. It always looks like Chastain makes a lot of noise. Outside of that spin with Elliott, Chastain didn't really do a lot, honestly. And it's really weird because I always expect a lot out of Chastain at Atlanta for some reason. I always have him running well. He always runs well, like he makes some noise, but this race it was initially quiet. Like it didn't stay up front or he was up front for a couple of times, but he didn't let any laps. So I was a bit weird on that front. Michael McDowell finished 8th. This was a revelation race for Front Row Motorsports. The results of this team, the results don't do this team justice, because seriously, this McDowell and Todd Gilliland, again, Front Row Motorsports. If we're looking at laps led, Front Row Motorsports, they dominated this race, and this is something I never thought I would say, that Front Row Motorsports were the team to beat this weekend, or they were the best team this weekend. They led the most laps. That's a sentence I never thought I would say out loud. Michael McDowell actually being a favorite at a track that's not a road course. Like, I know it's a super speedway, but even on super speedways, McDowell is not a favorite. He's usually like a sleeper pick or a dark horse pick, but you never looked at Michael McDowell as a favorite outside of road courses. This was the first time ever. And Todd Gilliland too. He was seen as a potential dark horse as well, entering this race after qualifying 4th. This was just a revelation race for Front Row Motorsports. Again, that Penske Alliance, man, that Tier 1 support from Ford is working. This team is doing wonders for this team. This team, I'm gonna say it right now, Front Row Motorsports, they are the 3rd best Ford team. They're better than Stewart-Haas Racing. They are better than the Wood Brothers. The only teams that are better, Penske and RFK. After that, it's Front Row. I just said it. They are a top 3 team in Ford. They are the 3rd best Ford team in the Cup Series right now. So anyways, Chris Buescher finished 9th. And speaking of RFK, and Ty Gibbs in 10th, the only Gibbs car to finish in the top 10. And only one of 2 Toyotas as well. This was a pretty tough race for the Toyotas compared to the Daytona 500. They didn't really show that much speed. Harrison Burton finished 11th, pretty solid day. Martin Truex also finished 12th. For a guy that usually doesn't get a lot of results at super speedways and always get the short end of the stick, he actually finishes super speedways at the very least. Corey LaJoie 13th, Kaz Grala 14th, great rebound after that. Kyle Busch did it a bit dirty earlier in stage 3. Chase Elliott 15th, he had a really eventful day. William Byron, Daytona 500 winner in 17th. Carson Hocevar, despite getting involved in that last caution with Josh Berry getting some damage, he finished 19th. Justin Haley in 20th. To round out the top 20. Both Reekwer Racing cars in the top 20. Haley and Kaz Grala. Shout out to Reekwer Racing. They're also low key on the rise as well with this crop of young drivers. Austin Dillon 22nd. I definitely thought he was gonna finish worse, because he was another guy that had a lot of eventful days. A lot of drivers, if you go through the field, now that I'm going through the results here, a lot of drivers, they had really eventful days. You look at Denny Hamlin. He got involved in 3 incidents, just like Chase Elliott. He finished 23rd. BJ McLeod 24th. Todd Gilliland 26th. Again, the results don't do Front Row Motorsports justice. Todd Gilliland, he had a top 5 car for most of the race. Him and McDowell looked like the cars to beat again. I will never get tired of saying that. Unfortunately, it looks like Todd, he hit the wall late in the race. He bent the toe link. I don't know exactly when he did. Probably could have been at some point between the Hamlin and Briscoe crash and the last caution, because this happened late in the race, because he was running like top 5 with like 30 to go. So it must have been like late in the race that he bent the toe link. Anyways. And then going down through the field, you see guys that, guys that got involved. Alex Bowman 27th. He got involved in the lap 2 incident. He barely beat the TVP clock, but he never recovered. Tyler Reddick, also another guy that was involved in the lap 2 crash, who never recovered despite beating the TVP clock. He finished 30th. Josh Berry, there was a potential like for a top 10 finishing there, but he got involved in the last lap crash, in that last caution, finished 29th. Joe Logano got involved in that wreck to win stage 2 with Chris Buescher. He finished 28th. Then Chase Briscoe, he crashed out with Hamlin 31st. Then Larson and Keselowski. they got involved in that accident when Keselowski got loose. The same way Chris Buescher got loose in stage 1 as well. Like, it wasn't on that same spot as well. And on that same lane too, because Keselowski was running outside. 32nd for Larson, 33rd for Keselowski. And now that I look at the point standings, like, I don't like looking at like point standings a lot, because it's too early in the season. But looking at the point standings, Joe Logano and Brad Keselowski, they're like running below. They're running like in the 30th in points range already. Like, they're digging themselves in the hole pretty early in the season. And again, with Suarez winning, a guy that, you know, you wouldn't necessarily have in the playoffs, Suarez winning, you actually got to start thinking playoffs now, because once a guy that you usually don't expect to be in the playoffs actually wins and locks his way in, at that point, that's when the playoff battle really begins. And I feel with Suarez winning, Logano and Keselowski 30th in points, a lot of good drivers coming back, like hungry for wins. Yeah, this is going to be... We're in for another wild playoff battle. I'm just saying. Anyways, Christopher Bell 34th, Noah Gragson 36th, Josh Williams 37th, and also Zane Smith 35th. But yeah, this race was wow, was a trip, a good trip. You know, this may be recency bias. I know there's been like I got 24 hours to cool off my mind. And you know, you may call this recency bias, but this was overall one of the greatest races of all time. This race was, in my opinion, very similar to the 2022 Coca-Cola 600. Comers and goers, a lot of accidents, a lot of guys involved in incidents. Almost every single driver was involved in some accident in this race, or it had some type of damage. Again, like I said, Austin Cindric, Kyle Busch, Stenhouse, maybe Ryan Blaney, I don't know, among those guys, there were only like 4 guys that finished with damage-free stuff. BJ McLeod, did BJ McLeod get involved in an incident in this race? I don't know if he did. If he didn't, then you can add him to the list as well. But there were like, you know, 4 or 5 guys. I counted 4 or 5 guys that didn't get involved in accidents this season. I know Fox showed a graphic, but I know like some guys were like Josh Berry, they got involved in accidents later on after they showed that graphic. So you gotta just weed them out as well. But most importantly, this racing, it featured insane racing from start to finish. You know, at the very least for the expectations that you would place upon New Atlanta. But yeah, the racing was insane from start to finish, especially compared to what we saw on Saturday with a classic Atlanta photo finish with a modern twist to boot. This was a classic Atlanta race with a modern twist, especially with a 3-wide photo finish. And again, that 3-wide photo finish is one for the history books. It's happening. We've seen a lot of like 2-wide photo finishes, like Ricky Craven versus Kurt Busch, Earnhardt Labonte, Harvick versus Gordon. And I know a lot of people had said that these finishes are like, yeah, this is recency bias, bro. Recency bias to hell with recency bias. A 3-wide photo finish. This is like 3-wide photo finish. The closest thing we have ever seen to a 3-wide photo finish was the 1959 Daytona 500. And one of the guys, and that doesn't even count, because one of the guys that was in that 3-wide photo finish was a lap car, so it doesn't even count. This was a legit 3-wide photo finish that you only ever see once in a generation. It hasn't ever happened in Daytona, hasn't ever happened in Talladega. I cannot envision the next time this will, you know, this will happen. You know, recency bias aside, one of the top 5, maybe top 3, maybe the best NASCAR finish of all time. maybe the best NASCAR finish of all time. I know the call in the booth is gonna be like really, a lot of people are gonna say the call in the booth. Yeah, I mean it's just Fox, Fox. I mean the call in the booth. Now that I think about it, was pretty solid, but they could have put a bit more energy as well. They just could have put a bit more energy as well. I just wish, he didn't narrate. He wasn't on the booth to call the race. But I just wish Tony Rivera was there, like in the Spanish feed of Fox, especially with Suarez winning. I would have loved to watch Tony Rivera's call for that race. He would have just lost his mind. That man would have just lost his mind. But anyways, this race, I am already putting it as race of the year. I'm giving it an A+. And I'm gonna be doing something different this year as well. Ever since I've been doing like weekend reviews, like giving every racing a grade, but the way those reviews are like, the way those grades are done is like I take the trucks, Xfinity, and Cup race, or whatever race that there was in the weekend, and I give them a grade. For example, the Cup race may be good, but the Xfinity race and the truck race was bad. I'm not gonna be doing that anymore because I feel that it wouldn't be doing. I'm not gonna be doing that anymore, in part because I just feel that if I evaluate the entire weekend as a whole, because truck race was bad, Xfinity race was bad, the Cup race was good. Overall, I would give this weekend like a B-. I'm not gonna be doing that anymore. For this, I'm gonna be doing this for Cup races only from now on. You're not gonna be talking about, I'm gonna give this truck race a C+, or the Xfinity race I'm gonna give it a B. No, I'm not gonna be doing that anymore. The letter grades are only gonna be for Cup races only. So yeah, Daytona 500. I believe I give it a B+. I would have given it an A- because of the finish, just kind of ruining it for me. It was a pretty underwhelming. This race at Atlanta was the complete opposite. It was great racing, just like at the Daytona 500. Great, if not better, racing. And of course, an all-time great finish for the history books as a cherry on top. This is an A+. This is a solid A+. This is a solid A+. My hate bias for the track aside, like I said, this race just changed my opinion of Atlanta for the better. We will look back on this race years down the line as a modern classic for sure, as well as this, again, being the race that changed my overall opinion on this new configuration for the better. Screw one of the greatest races of the Gen 7 era. This is one of the best NASCAR races of all time, period. Like I said, the finish speaks for itself. And of course, driver of the day, I gotta give it to Daniel Suarez. He, not only did he come out as the winner in this insane finish, but you also gotta understand the context. Like I said, Daniel Suarez entered this season. He may not be in a contract year, but he still entered this season as the driver with the most pressure to perform. Especially considering, Trackhouse, with all of the signings that they made, with Shane Van Gisbergen in Xfinity, Connor Silich on a driver development deal, and then Saint Smith running on with Spire Motorsports on an alliance with Trackhouse. Because of all of those new signings, and with the Project 91 being like still their part-time ride that could become like the third full-time car. A lot of speculation started that Suarez was maybe the odd man out, because Chastain, you're not getting rid of him. He is your number one guy, no pun intended. He is your best driver still. So because of that, Suarez was the odd man out. There was a lot of speculation of what would happen with Suarez when 2025 came around, that being his contract year. A lot of people thought that this was going to be it for him because they didn't expect him making it to the playoffs. Of course, I didn't think, I didn't factor that. I said Suarez will miss the playoffs, but, I still didn't think he was in that hot of a seat. he said it was pretty much warm, and he was starting to warm up though. So I can understand the people saying that Suarez was like in pressure to perform and stuff like that. Because he definitely had. He doesn't have the pressure. He just doesn't have. He just has a different kind of pressure because he's not in a contract year yet. But not better time like the present to make an audition. That's what I'm trying to say. And what better way to make an audition to make an impact other than winning? One of the all-time great finishes in NASCAR. As a matter of fact, when you look at this finish and what used to be the greatest finish in NASCAR history before this race, the 2003 Darlington race with Ricky Craven and Kurt Busch, Daniel Suarez and Ricky Craven, they both scored their second career victories in a photo finish by holding off a Busch and a Blaney in the top 3. Ricky Craven just beat Kurt Busch in a photo finish. Daniel Suarez beat Ryan Blaney and Kyle Busch in a photo finish. And also in that 2003 race, Dave Blaney, who was Ryan Blaney's father, for those of you newer NASCAR fans out there, Dave Blaney finished third. The race that Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven had that photo finish. So you got a guy that won his second career race in a photo finish holding off a Busch and a Blaney 21 years apart. It's just crazy. History is just crazy how history just doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Again, just one of those crazy tweets that I just love to talk about because I'm just a stats guy and I love talking about random stats or random facts that I find on Twitter. That's why Trey Ryan is my main source of stats. By the way, shout out to Trey Ryan. Go follow him on Twitter at TreyRyan99. He is a great stats guy for NASCAR. So anyways, yeah, Suarez is my driver of the day, but I want to give a honorable mention to Todd Gilliland, and also Front Row Motorsports as a whole, because like I said, this was the most laps Front Row Motorsports has led in a race in team history. Both McDowell and Gilliland, they look like the guys to beat for many parts of the race. And like with Jesse Love too, it's too early to tell because it's only been 2 races and 2 super speedway races at that. But again, you still gotta perform at those races, and we have seen it before. A good start to the season can take you a long way. Again, I'm just saying, this Front Row Motorsports team, they just might be for real. They might steal a playoff spot on points with Michael McDowell. So even if there's a lot of racing left, even if they didn't get the results they probably deserved, especially on the 38 side, there is a lot to be proud of if you are Front Row Motorsports. Basically, what I said about Jesse Love on Saturday applies to Front Row Motorsports as well. In that you may not have won the race, but there is still a lot to be proud of and a lot to build on, a lot of momentum built for the season. But yeah, going back to Suarez, the guy might have just saved his job with that win. If that photo finish goes any different, we may be talking, years down the line about what might have been years down the line. And again, that's just how fragile it is sometimes, because Justin Marks, he has gone on record to say, after Suarez won the race, Justin Marks said when they interviewed him, they asked him, does this save Suarez's job at Trackhouse? And Justin Marks said, what do you mean? Suarez's job was never at risk. Suarez, even after 2025 and beyond, Suarez was going to stay with us. Even with all of the new signings, is going to be part of the team long term. That's nice of Justin Marks to say, and I do believe, I'm not saying he's a liar or anything. I do believe that he gave out an honest interview in that he feels that he likes Suarez a lot. I mean, he picked him up when he started out this team, Trackhouse Racing. The first guy that he signed was Suarez. Suarez was the guy that built that program from the ground up, or he helped build that program, because Trackhouse didn't really start to become Trackhouse until they bought Ganassi. Back then it was like a single car venture with Suarez, but a modest team, but they had But that team had potential, which is why Ganassi saw the vision in Justin Marks and he agreed to sell the team to him because he knew he would take good care of it. Marks has put a lot of trust in Daniel Suarez, and he said, yeah, I cannot envision a track house without Suarez. And that's pretty nice of him to say that. I'm not saying he's a liar or anything, but it's very easy for him to say that after Suarez won a race. I'm just saying that it's very easy to say that stuff when your driver won. Again, I'm not calling Justin Marks out or anything, just pointing it out. But anyways, that's just how fragile sports is sometimes, like I said. Because Suarez might have just, as crazy as this sounds, Daniel Suarez, he might have just photo finished his way into a contract extension with Trackhouse. Trackhouse to just extend him on the spot right now after that amazing win. Not only is this another viral NASCAR moment, but it's also another viral NASCAR moment that features a Trackhouse car on the spotlight. Last 2 years ago, it was Ross Chastain with the Hail Melon. Now it's Daniel Suarez with the 3-wide photo finish win at Atlanta. And then 2023, Shane Van Gisbergen. In his first ever NASCAR start, he wins at the Chicago Street Course. He was also driving the Project 91 Trackhouse car. So again, I love Trackhouse racing. This team has done so much good for NASCAR. This is official. I'm calling that right now. I am a certified Trackhouse racing fan. They are my favorite team in NASCAR right now. They are my favorite team in NASCAR right now. I love Trackhouse, man. Finally, some final thoughts that I just want to give out before I end this absolute banger of a stream because, holy shit, it's already been an hour and a half. It's honestly crazy how one race can change your entire opinion on a single track. I thought last year, the 2023 races, I thought the 2023 July race, especially towards the end before the rain came out, I thought that was going to be the best version I would see, the best racing I would see out of New Atlanta. But now it's pretty clear to me. This track works for the Cup Series only. The track is good. New Atlanta is good, but only for the Cup Series. Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, they will probably never come close to producing this type of racing, and we just have to accept that. But the Cup races have only gotten better since the first race at the new service in March of 2022. And I know I said this last year, when I was saying like my weekend review, when I was reviewing the when I was sharing my thoughts on the Cup race in July of last year. The best case scenario for Atlanta is to like remove its spring date, keep the second date, and make it a Saturday night triple header in the middle of summer. My opinion has slightly changed now. I would still do the triple header thing in the summer, but I will also keep the spring race, but only for the Cup Series. Xfinity, they do not deserve 2 Atlanta races. They do not. The Xfinity Series does not need to visit this track twice. Once is already fine. They should only race once a year like they do in the Truck Series and get done with it. The Cup Series, on the other hand, if Atlanta is going to keep delivering banger races like this, I'm keeping the 2 races as is. There's also talks about NASCAR, ditching the super speedway package and going back to the intermediate package once the track surface starts to age. So again, I'm really intrigued to see how that's gonna work. I never thought that was gonna be a possibility, but after this amazing finish that this track produced, and with Atlanta, what my and you guys already know my thoughts. What my thoughts are on the track surface when it comes to to NASCAR tracks. The older the surface, the more worn out, the more tire wear matters, the better the racing, in my opinion. That is one of the main reasons why I loved the old Atlanta. And this is why I was against the reconfiguration in the first place. It was because, repave the track, fine, because, old Atlanta, the surface was just so abrasive that drivers were getting flat tires under yellow. Yeah, that was the repaint was necessary. I wasn't a big fan of the reconfiguration though. Now it's still gonna take some getting used to, but I don't hate the reconfiguration as much. You know, my main complaint towards the reconfiguration has more to do with Xfinity and Truck Series, but as long as the Cup Series, which is like the premier NASCAR series, like they're the big boys, as long as the Cup Series keeps producing great racing like this, honestly, who cares? But seriously, NASCAR they have to look at they still have to take a look at the package for the trucks and for the truck and Xfinity. I do believe they run the Super Speedway package for the trucks and Xfinity, which is why maybe that probably explains why the racing is so bad. They should probably just go back to the intermediate package if that's the case. For the Cup Series, I don't know if they run the Super Speedway package or the intermediate package. I don't know, but regardless, I mean, right now just keep it up. I mean, just keep it up. I mean, the racing was great today, so just keep it up for the playoffs. Just keep it up for the next race in the playoffs. And again, that's another point that I need to emphasize. As much as I love this race, Atlanta, NASCAR, you guys, please, you do not need to start the season with 2 super speedway races in a row. You also do not need to put Atlanta in the playoffs when Talladega is already, another super speedway track is already in the playoffs. Please spread out the schedule a little. You guys have 6 super speedway races and they are bunched up together. 3 in the first half, 3 in the second half. They're all bunched up together. Please spread the schedule out a little bit, please. But anyways, I'm also pretty intrigued at the thought of like watching an older, like an older, more abrasive surface, similar to Old Atlanta, but with more banking, with the intermediate package as the track ages. We could see like some, a combination of what we saw with like the old Daytona, like Daytona 2004, Daytona 500, where tire wear and handling actually mattered, and you could actually do like side draft. Like the move that Dale Jr. used on Tony Stewart to win the 2004 Daytona 500. We saw a bit of that on this track. And I will, something else I would also love to see, because this track has potential. At least as far as the Cup Series goes, this track has potential. Xfinity and the Truck Series, I mean, just run the intermediate package on this guys, and let's just, I'm willing to give Atlanta a chance. That's what I'm trying to say. Even in Xfinity and the Truck Series, I think they're still running the Super Speedway package. Just run the intermediate package and see how it goes. I'm willing to give this track a chance after the banger race they produced. Oh my gosh, I am so hyped. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how they run like the 550, not 550. Fuck that. I would really love to see how they will run like intermediate package, the Cup cars with the intermediate package, and on the old Atlanta surface, on the new Atlanta, but a worn out surface as a track starts aging, they can have more natural organic. I would also love to see that once the track surface starts to age, so they can have some natural organic hybrid pack racing and not the artificial bullshit they tried with like the 550 horsepower package back in 2019. That was not real pack racing. That was just artificial bullshit. What I envision now with this new Atlanta is some like organic hybrid pack racing with some 2004 Daytona 500 elements. My point is, I will always miss Old Atlanta, but if this is the next big thing long term, hey, I'll take it. Again, this track has potential that I just didn't realize it had. At first, I didn't like it obviously because of the concept of pack racing on a smaller track not working, and also because turning a racetrack into a mini Daytona I just had a negative predisposition also because I'm a bit of a purist. But hey, if it works, it works. I always like Atlanta because it's always been like a legacy track for me. And I was also very worried. I was also very worried of what it would do. That people were gonna that this experiment could backfire, like every recent experiment that NASCAR had done. But I am so glad that it's not at the moment. It still needs some working, but again, this track, it has potential. NASCAR, they knew what they were doing by starting out the season with 2 super speedway races. Even with the great racing overall we saw out of both events, at some point, super speedway racing, it leaves you fatigued and wishing for another type of racing. But I have a theory that the main reason why NASCAR started out the season with 2 super speedway races is because of their new Netflix show. Because, the new fans who follow the sport now because of the show, they have been exposed to the Daytona 500 and a crazy 3-wide photo finish that you will only see in the first Cars movie, aka the greatest NASCAR finish of all time. Don't at me. But yeah, as much as Atlanta delivered today, it doesn't need to be the first race after the Daytona 500 long term. I do expect that to change as the years go on, and it also doesn't need to be in the playoffs. We already have Talladega. Again, we need more schedule variety. Again, I know 6 super speedway races, there's only so much you can do, but I feel like if you can spread out the schedule, you have like 36 races in a season. If you do like 1 super speedway every 6 races, I feel like, that's enough variety. Again, personally, like I said, if you ask me back in the day, if you asked me this question last year, I would tell you, yeah, run at Atlanta like only once a year. Because there's too many super speedway races. Now I am like, yeah, there's too many super speedway races, but the racing is so good that it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, I don't like too many super speedway racing because it's like a crapshoot. But honestly, racing is racing at this point. Like, who cares? And besides, it's not like Atlanta is like a mini Daytona Talladega. It's at some point in the long term, it looks like it's projected to be its own thing of like hybrid pack racing. Again, I'm interested to watch that. But anyways, I'm suffering from super speedway fatigue right now. Again, I'm really hyped for the rest of the season, but I'm more hyped to finally get done with like super speedways for a while. We're not racing until 2 months later at Talladega, when we will see another super speedway. But I'm just ready for some true mile-and-a-half action at Las Vegas. But yeah, that said, wow, and just wow. Woo! Wild race, man. Wild race.